even before with the British, have been funding the radical Muslims and using them to overthrow countries. This new thing NATO's doing, helping overthrow Egypt and putting in Al-Qaeda and Muslim Brotherhood, this overthrowing Gaddafi, who'd made deals with the West and putting Al-Qaeda in charge, this having Al-Qaeda backed by U.S., British, and other special forces are now in Damascus, attacking the presidential parliament and other facilities. I mean, this is a real war. There's a giant guerrilla war with Al-Qaeda jihadis in Al-Qaeda uniforms, black uniforms with the flag of Al-Qaeda, with the patch of Al-Qaeda. It's on the news, and it's, yeah, we got to get Assad. We'll work with whoever we have to. That isn't something new. That's incredibly old. The British, I mean, Lawrence of Arabia is a true movie. Lawrence of Arabia is a true story. It's a true story. But they have it as if he's a hero going and unifying what was the desert into Saudi Arabia. And, he goes and makes a deal with the Bedouins and gets weapons to them to go overthrow the other groups. That's really what happened. That's the group that funds Al-Qaeda. That's the Wahhabist. They put them in charge. From people living in big tents out in the desert to giant sex palaces. And then 15 of the patsy hijackers who were intelligence operatives, it came out they worked for the Saudi government, trained at U.S. military bases. That all came out. The heads of the bases would come out and say, these guys were trained in my classes, including Muhammad Atta. Then you see the headline, head of Defense Language School, colonel being court-martialed for releasing classified information. I mean, again, we don't know exactly what happened on 9/11. Some say, oh, it was a triple cross. We thought it was drills for hijacking, but they use it as a real hijacking. In this movie theater, you got a person or persons with a bunch of high-caliber, semi-auto guns shooting people, and guys tried to stop them and jumped on them and stuff. But we're to believe people with box cutters. Let me tell you something. If I was on an airplane, people say, well, that's today. No. If I was on an airplane and 4 guys got up with box cutters and said, do what we say. I mean, I'm not the toughest guy around. But let me tell you something. I live for stuff like this. Okay? I mean, I don't like it, but once the door opens, once someone is violent in my face, I mean, I turn into an absolute vicious goblin-like creature. And most men I know, especially when you become an adult, that's why adults don't get in a lot of fights, because it's not like you're a teenager anymore, and people go to the hospital. People end up dying when adults get in fights. I mean, can you imagine a plane full of a bunch of defense contractors, former and current military, and guys who all weighed about 180 pounds, 160 pounds, some of them 140 pounds, pull out box cutters? I mean, let me tell you something. You're about to get hurt real bad. I can't even get physically excited until there's a threat. I know most men are that way. I mean, the minute somebody pulls, by the way, that's happened to me repeatedly. I grew up in Dallas. I've had people pull knives on me. I've taken them away from them. I've used their head like a basketball on the ground. But the point is, and then gone to jail, even though until later, the fact came out that I was attacked. Side issue. All of you know the truth. Here's the toll-free number, 800-259-9231. Guys, will you launch the phone system for me? Thank you. 800-259-9231 is the toll-free number to join us on air today. I'm just going to take calls for 20, 30, 40 minutes and just try to regroup here, because I've got a whole bunch of video clips and audio clips I want to play. I've got whole stacks of research and documents. If you're a radio listener, if you were watching on Prisonplanet.tv, no exaggeration, I would guess there are 300+ articles and documents in here in front of me, and I have looked and read almost all of them just in the last 2 days, and I want to cover it all. It is all off the charts crazy. 800-259-9231. And it makes my head spin. I just had the article. Here it is. This was ABC News and RT. We reported on this over a year ago because independent journalists and others went into the area at their own risk. We first saw that they weren't reporting any radiation in and around Fukushima, but in other areas they were. And it turns out the radiation is many times what they said it was, and 8 times what they said it was hitting the West Coast. And it turned out, of course, giant tuna caught last year, just 3 months after the event, had high levels of radiation. And milk and food all over the U.S. has been found with it. That's actually been in the news, but back of the paper. Fukushima contractor forced workers to fake radiation readings and to say that there was low radiation when it was actually high. That's RT, a company charged with decontaminating the devastated Fukushima nuclear power plant, encouraged its workers to falsely lower their radiation dosimeter readings by covering the devices with lead, according to a leaked tape of an internal meeting. This is all over the Japanese news right now. We first posted it a couple days ago. There were commenters on Infowars.com, the normal people saying we'd made it up and it wasn't real. And again, that's a psych warfare tactic. We've tracked a lot of their IP addresses to the Department of Defense. They have to at least just say it isn't true up front, because then the mind mitigates that and somehow creates denial even though you know it's true. And so that's all. I mean, all right, I'm going to go to your phone calls here because, again, I'm just completely overwhelmed with news. Suspect arrested in L.A. homeless stabbings. You know what the answer is to that, of course, ban knives, because someone used it to kill people. And, of course, Piers Morgan, Felipe Calderon, Bloomberg, ABC News, the usual suspects, Michael Moore. They're all running around saying right now that we have got to restrict our guns because of what this supposed person did. And everybody's just officially buying the story in the media that they say it's him, that's it, he's the gunman, he's in a jail cell flopping around screaming he's the Joker. I mean, they could commit a mass shooting and give me a drug that totally fries my brain where I'm flopping around and then just say I did it. I mean, this is the oldest trick in the book, and they describe in Operation Northwoods how to frame patsies for mass shootings at, you guessed it, what they do in Operation Gladio, movie theaters, bus stations, things like that. And now they're calling for the TSA in the bus stations and all the rest of it. We told you that was coming. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to come back, take calls for 30, 40 minutes. Then I'm going to try to do a focused news blitz on world news and more. And when our 2 guests join us that are experts on false flag terror, and specifically the Oklahoma City inside job event, we're going to tie it into this event, because the prime suspects, if it's a false flag, is the very Justice Department caught running the false flag of Fast and Furious to blame the Second Amendment. It's the very same crew. And I had on researcher and former Marine grabbing the DVD here from A Noble Lie, Holland, Vanden Nieuwenhof, and Chris Emery. I had them on just a few months ago, so I would suggest they go get the last interviews where we said false flag alert. And I remember discussing with them what type of false flags we expected. And we said shopping malls, grocery stores, movie theaters. I remember that. If it wasn't the last interview, it was the one before that. Because we were all very concerned that they were about to pull one with the UN treaty and the rest of it. So they're experts, probably even more so than I am on Oklahoma City, because they focus on it full time. I mean, I've forgotten so much about it. There's so much proof. It's like an ocean of it. They're going to be joining us. That's why we kept saying in articles and on the air, this film is important because they're getting ready to stage mass shootings to blame it on the Second Amendment and the Patriot movement. In fact, we said in the last 3 or 4 interviews that that's why they put the film out now, was because the very same crew that carried this out is now in the White House. The people that run Obama ran this. They even put out, remember Glenn Beck going on air and saying they're going to stage a new Oklahoma City and blame it on me? He pointed at himself because in the fundraising memos, they mentioned Glenn Beck. Well, on Media Matters, they say Alex Jones, Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh, Matt Drudge, people like that. I mean, they think we're so dumb. They say, without a new Oklahoma City or 9/11, Obama will never get reelected. Oh, my gosh, I just remembered that. We haven't even had an article about, was this the false flag? that we kept warning about. I mean, they say they're going to have a false flag. Even Glenn Beck even Michael Savage comes out and says they may stage one. And then they have the classic lone nut, Get a Noble Lie, available at InfoWarsShop.com. But again, I just start ranting about how they have a history of false flags instead of even pointing out that this is exactly what we predicted they would do. Wow, that just made my head spin right there. That just made my head spin right there. That's another problem. I'm so busy with management, personnel, hiring people that it's really got me off balance running this whole place, trying to stay focused on the news and information. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen. I've got to get back focused on the info because I can't just get up here and say I think it's an inside job. I've got to give you all the reasons it's an inside job. I'd be crazy if I didn't look at this as an inside job. Let me ask you a question. What does free... You need to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that we have a criminal government in place who's been caught staging false flags over and over again. And we would be insane if we did not investigate government for this. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks last night that we had Holland, Vander Nieuwenhof, and Chris Emery on, and others, in the last 4 months saying we all believed terror attacks were coming, and that from the pre-propaganda we were seeing that I believed it was going to be mass shootings of shopping malls, grocery stores, and movie theaters to bring in the TSA. And I know I said that over and over and over again. So radio listeners, if you can dig that out of my last interviews with them, I don't have the crew to do it. We will then play it on air. And again, it's not about, oh, we're right, we told you so. The White House and Obama's advisors have said in the Financial Times of London, in their internal fundraising memos to mega donors, that don't worry, there's going to be a new Oklahoma City or 9/11, and we're going to blame it on people. They don't say we're going to do it. They just say, don't worry, there's going to be one. Don't worry, the restaurant's going to burn down and we're going to get the insurance money. Imagine if the owner of a restaurant said, we're bankrupt, but don't worry, everybody that's worked here for years, there's going to be a fire next week, and so we're going to build a new restaurant with that money. Then if the restaurant burnt down the next week, the fire marshals would be there saying, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. They'd have the arson dogs in there, finding where they dumped the gasoline. But no. All these White House advisors, Robert Shapiro, the big lawyer, all of them say, barring an Oklahoma City or a 9/11, so the president can rally people and be a hero, he's not going to get reelected. And now he's getting his bump in the polls. Just watch. And he's out there grandstanding in Colorado, having his surrogates call to restrict our guns. And he's like, I don't know if I'm going to call for that. But, my UN treaty doesn't restrict your guns. They have the CFR out saying that, and Obama today. Oh, but guess what? Different TV channels, I've got that in my stack. Different TV channels, guess what they're doing? NBC's Gregory blames Batman massacre on angry political dialogue, says Rush Limbaugh to blame for shootings. We wrote an article Friday morning saying how long until they blame somebody like Alex Jones or Rush Limbaugh. There you go. Rush Limbaugh, it's your fault. Poor old Rush hardly even talks about the Second Amendment. Rush Limbaugh is like milquetoast, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, Rush, see, people say good, we hate Rush Limbaugh. So many even conservative libertarian hosts I know behind the scenes are jealous. And listen, folks, if they can destroy Rush Limbaugh, let me give you a little news flash. They take down the biggest person first. And I know you see him as establishment. Let me tell you, the Obamanoids don't. They blamed Oklahoma City on him. And see, I just called Watson during the break. Then I'm going to come back and go to your calls, I promise. He's going to write another article right now because I'm like, whoa, Paul, we've got the memos, we've got the statement.